Okay, so this whole thing about defunding NPR and PBS and oh no, Sesame Street is gone. Sesame Street left PBS in 2016. Now, are they still on there? Yes, because they're getting the scraps from HBO Max, who were airing Sesame Street. The deal was we air the original product and we give you the prior season to air on PBS. I believe that's what the deal was. But PBS is not funding Sesame Street. So using Sesame Street as like a tool that the left is using because Trump is taking away funding from NPR and PBS is a bullshit excuse. Somebody said, "Oh, they want to get rid of Sesame Street because they're defunding. You know, they want to kill Sesame Street. They're not killing Sesame Street. Society is killing Sesame Street." Sesame Street was a phenomenon back in 1969. It was the biggest fucking thing on television. Parents were involved with it. Kids were involved with it. All throughout the late, well, it started in 69. So from 69 into the 70s, it was the shit. It was where you went to learn your alphabet, your numbers. You know, you had puppets there that taught you things. Everything. Now, there is so much educational programming between Nickelodeon and Disney and you know, people, shows like Bluey, they're watching over Elmo. So there's more competition now besides the fact. So HBO Max just dropped Sesame Street. So if they were getting any funding, it was coming from HBO Max, and they dropped them. They want to go back to more adult programming than anything else. So there's that. But you're not going to tell me that PBS is funding Sesame. They're not. They're a private entity. They fund within themselves with all the marketing. I mean, they make millions off Elmo. Millions. Movies, any movies that come out with the Sesame Street characters, they get a cut of that. TV shows, appearances, anything that involves Sesame Street, they get a cut of if you use their puppets or people from the show, and the fucking clock decides, let's go off now. So yeah. So somebody said to me, well, you know, it's Trump's fault and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, but you're wrong. You're wrong. By him defunding PBS, it means they may not be able to air it anymore, but they're not funding the production and the people there. They're not. They're pretty much self-sufficient. And they're funded by the Children's Television Workshop. So whatever they get in, which isn't from PBS, they're the ones producing the show. So stop blaming Trump for killing Sesame Street. Blame everything else. You have more and more and more educational stuff, and kids are moving away from Sesame Street. They are. It's a shame, but they are, because I grew up on Sesame Street. I learned my letters and numbers before kindergarten. Now remember, when I grew up, Sesame Street came out when I was 2 years old. For 3 years, I watched Sesame Street before going to kindergarten, because way back when, they didn't have preschool. So this was my preschool. I would watch Sesame Street for an hour every day, and then, you know, do whatever kids do at that age. And then I'd watch Electric Company or something like that. But, yeah, I mean, back then, it was a learning tool because there was no other learning tool. Okay, for preschool kids, there was nothing. There may have been, I couldn't even tell you what it was. Okay, there was nothing preschool for kids other than Sesame Street when I was that young. At least that's all I know of. I'd have to ask my mother; she would know better. But she said I used to sit in front of the TV, watch Sesame Street, and then do whatever afterwards. But that by the time I hit the kindergarten, I knew my letters, my numbers. I could read. Stuff like that. Now, there's way too many. There's just way too many ways for kids to get more information and learn new things through Bluey and all these other preschool kids shows that are on TV, that are on regular TV, that are on Nickelodeon, that are on Nickelodeon Junior, that are on Disney Junior. So there's all kinds of there's other ways other than just Sesame Street now. When I was a kid, it was just Sesame Street. Now there's other ways. So I don't know what's going to happen to Sesame Street. It's a fucking shame that right now they're in limbo because HBO Max dropped them. I don't know where they're going to get the funding for a new season or even where they're going to broadcast. PBS may not pick them up because they left them. They up and left for HBO Max because they figured they'd get a bigger audience. Well, that didn't work out. Now did it? So, I could be wrong on some of this stuff, but just from what I've known throughout my life with Sesame Street and stuff like that, my daughter wasn't into Sesame Street. She was into Kipper the dog and Peppa Pig and stuff like that. That's what she was into. So Sesame Street was off the charts with her. It just depends on how you grew up and what you started showing your kids, and Sesame Street moving to Max pissed off a lot of people. Because it was on PBS for all those years, and now all of a sudden you pulled it. That pissed off a lot of people. That was a bad move. Anyway, hopefully they find a landing spot. Who knows? But Disney doesn't own it. That's the good thing. Because Disney fucked up with the Muppets. They've already fucked up with the Muppets. Getting rid of the Muppet thing at Disney in Florida, okay, Jim Henson's last project is sacrilege in my book. So, I don't know what's going to happen, but don't blame PBS or Trump for dropping PBS and PBS dropping Sesame Street. Sorry, doesn't work that way. Booyah.